Okay, how about something besides swab? It's evident that you know swab. Let's do something else. Some other pertinent information about the ablative absolute. Nobody else is allowed to type the phrase swab. Was it really necessary to put a selfie there? Yeah.
Just go with that, it just says charm.
Okay. All right, can you contribute a couple of more things, please, to our ablative absolute survey? You can also drag your boxes if you want to. Rearrange it a little bit. Just aesthetically speaking. Yeah. You have a what on your computer?
Oh, wait, no, stop.
Of course, just now. What do I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
It's been popping up, and then I click on the X, and it's not going away.
You need to install the extension of Ad Blocker, and then it'll pop up things like that.
Is that on the Chrome?
Yeah, just go to the web store and just do Ad Blocker extension. All right. So let's go over what you know, most of which has to do with swab, which I suppose in hindsight is a pretty conveniently stupid mnemonic, right? So you are all able to identify what swab is, and Claire finally clarified here, you should start each, it's not a sentence though, that's the problem with the ablative absolute. What is it? It's a clause or a phrase, right. So each translation of an ablative absolute needs to start with one of these swab words. Thank you for laying them all out here. Since, when, while, after, because. Should be in the ablative case. Let's just say is in the ablative case because it's called the ablative absolute, not the dative one. Christine gave us some examples. We have here pairs a noun in the ablative case with a participle. The participle must agree with the gender of the noun. That's true. I like Wolfgang's thing here. It tends to have a participle because there is the off chance that it doesn't have a participle, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes as well. And when you say non-essential clause, can you clarify what that means?
Like usually separated from the sentence by comma.
Absolutely. Very good. And because it's separated, it gives us the context for the rest of the sentence, the how or the when the rest of the sentence takes place. So we have ablative case, it involves participles, and Thea made an important note here that when the participle is embedded in the ablative absolute phrase, when you go to translate it, you have to translate it like it's a regular old-fashioned verb, which means you have to kind of take into account all of the parameters of the participle that you started with. So what types of participles do you know? Present, perfect, and future, right. So those are the three big ones. Bruce says it starts with a preposition. Yes, it does start with swab, even though it's implied in the Latin and it's not just kind of given to you. I'm just going to kind of, don't take this personally, I'm going to delete a couple of our simple swab messages. I appreciate that you contributed them. I just need to make room for a couple of other things. So let's clarify Charlie's. Always in the ablative case, usually with a participle. This is the swab thing. Starts with the preposition. I'm going to take this out, Bruce, only because we've kind of dove deeper into what the prepositional stuff is. Okay? All right, fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some samples right here on the Padlet. I'm going to give you some sample ablative absolute phrases. You don't have to put your name in to translate it, but I would like for everyone to do at least one of these sample phrases that I'm putting in here. Okay? So you don't have to put your name in. It can be completely anonymous. The title of it will just be the ablative absolute phrase. So when you're ready, go ahead and select the one that you want to put in. Come on. Close, please. Okay, so try to work through these and translate them, and we'll see what we get. Oh, this one alone. Yeah. It doesn't say you have to. Hold on one second. Right. It says it wants deletions. Oh. So here's this. And then it appears as that stuff. Right. So it'll ask you a couple times. Well, tell us how this thing. All right. Try to translate these on your own because we should all be working on your style, I suppose, of translating ablative absolute. Sorry, Claire. So opere perfecto needs work. His factis needs work, and fermento amiso. Those are the three outstanding ones. And this one, hac re nuntiata. If you need to use lat dict to look up words, you can. You're not limited to your vocab here. Can someone please start hac re? Can someone else please start this one? And can someone else please start that one? Perfecto means to finish. Perfectio, perfecere. You just delete this one instead of working on it? Did someone else delete it? Not you, obviously. Did someone else delete it by accident? Okay. Well, thanks for trying to do it for us. Okay, this is the un-macron version of the same one. Okay, a couple of things here. We do have to take a standard ablative absolute phrase that comes packaged with a participle and make that participle into a functional verb. So the way to do that, though, is to know what tense the participle is and whether it's active or passive. The one that I happen to have my cursor on up there, sonatu monito, excuse me, The original translation that's here is since the Senate warned. But this is a perfect passive participle. So how can you tweak the translation to make it a perfect passive translation? Kevin?
Since the Senate had been warned.
Good. All right. I'm going to go ahead and recommend that unless you have a present participle that has an NT, you probably shouldn't be using while, because while has this sense of progressive action, right? While mom was cooking dinner, while the dog was running in the yard, right? You usually don't use while with any other type of verb that doesn't have an ing to it. So from this perspective, nakato is not a perfect participle. I mean, it's not a present participle, excuse me. It's a perfect one. So let's take while out of the mix and use another option from Swab. What do you want to use? After. After works great. All right, when the woman is crying is fine. You could also do, I don't want that. You could also do was. It depends on the context of the rest of the sentence. Hawk audito, what type of participle? Present, past, or future? Present, perfect, or future? Olivia, what's your vote? Can you just stay on the screen for a little while? Thank you. Audito, what kind of participle is it? Present, future, or perfect? Right. So if it's perfect, we have to swap the translation out for something else. Haley, how do we make this perfect? Sure, had been heard. Good. You could also go simple to say was, but had been heard is just fine. When these words have been said is great. Oh my goodness. Yeah. You can do it either way. It depends on the context of the rest of the sentence, really. Omnibus rebus pratis, since these things were, I don't know about bought. I think you're thinking of a different verb. Parare, paratus. It's much simpler. Say it again. That's fere. Prepare, right. Now, where did the everyone come from here? Omnibus. But if the things were prepared by everyone, then that would be an ablative of agent. We don't have an agent within the ablative absolute. Right. Since all the things were prepared, okay? Hostibus coptis, this is, you're close, but is hostibus singular or plural? Is coptis singular or plural? What's that? Plural, right. And then what type of participle is coptis? Yeah. Good, so how can you adjust the translation? Well, were, but yeah. Okay? Again, factis, what type of participle is it, Bruce? Good, so how do you adjust the translation? Good. Okay. Hoc re is actually singular, so this thing has been done. All right, opidis incensis is the next one here. What is an oppidum? City, or actually more like a town. Right, so the town is the noun here. This is a perfect passive participle. So it's something that happened to the towns. We can start with after, that's fine. After the were burned, yeah. Yeah, a much simpler translation than originally written. Okay. Fermento amiso, when the corn was lost. I might just go more simple and say grain, but neither here nor there. Opero perfecto, while the work was being accomplished. This is great. Are there any others hiding around? No. Okay, good. Do you feel like you have a slightly stronger ability to translate ablative absolute than you did before? Yes? Okay. So what I'm going to have you do is take out your textbooks and turn to to chapter 44. Chapter 44 contains some action, folks. So, if you're looking for a fun ride, yes? Yes, you may. Chapter 44 is called Stop Thief. And as you can imagine, in the most inconvenient place on the planet, someone's clothes are stolen at the bathhouse. We're not going to translate the whole story, though. Sorry. I'm going to leave you hanging. Can you wait 1 second?
Yeah.
Okay. Allie, you too?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fast forward slightly to page 178. And on page 178, you see exercise 44D. There are 10 sentences, each of which begins with an ablative absolute phrase. The one thing we didn't talk about is what Wolfgang mentioned before, is that he said it usually has a participle. It doesn't always, though. Once in a while, you're going to get to an ablative absolute that has two nouns together. Number 8 is a great example of an ablative absolute that has two nouns. The two noun ablative absolutes are pretty formulaic in what they look like. So you want to say, while Acellus was the guard. You could say, while Christine was my lab partner, while Caesar was leader, while Allie was my best friend, something like that. Or while Allie is my best friend. Whatever you want to do, you have while, and then you have the two nouns acting together in that fashion. What I would like for you to do in your groups now is to just translate, not the whole sentence, but each ablative absolute phrase within each sentence. I don't think it's going to take you too long because it's just 2 to 3 words per phrase. So let's ballpark maybe 12, 13 minutes for just the ablative absolute phrase translations from these sentences. Thea, go ahead. Okay, let's take a break from your phrases in chapter 44 for just a second. Let's look at 2 of the phrases that you already translated on the Padlet, which, by the way, I just took an image. I made the Padlet into an image, and I'm going to put that image onto Classroom so that you can have like a composite view of everything that we did on that Padlet for you to refer to in the future. So, hostibus captis, how did we initially translate it? You can look at the Padlet if you want to, or you can just know. How do we translate it? Jack? Good. And then we have the rest of the sentence after an ablative absolute phrase. What about femina lacrimante? What do we do with that? When the woman is crying. So in both cases, these ablative absolutes, and this is their design in general, in both cases, they set the stage for other things to happen in the sentence. Where else have you seen a phrase that starts the sentence in a similar way? Excellent. Very good. So an ablative absolute has the same phraseology as cum clauses. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a kind of equal sign. Cum clauses. Oops. Subjunctive. I'm just going to put subjunctive in there so that you kind of remember what family of clause we're talking about. So here you are at the beginning of the pinnacle of your Latin experience where you can say the same sentence in two very different ways. This is exciting, and yet it is a bit of a burden to bear, right? That you now have like lots of different ways of doing the same thing that you also have to keep track of at the end of the day. So let's take this phrase that's here as an ablative absolute, and we're going to reconstruct it as a subjunctive cum clause. How shall we do it? What is the subjunctive version of this phrase? I'll give you a hint, it's a cum clause. So what should we start with? Cum, there you go. So we want to say, because the enemies had been captured. Who's the subject of our cum clause? Enemies. They have to be nominative because they're the subject of a cum clause, right? So hostes is the nominative version. And then we said had been captured. What tense is that in verb land? Not just perfect. Well, it's passive, but it's not just perfect. It's pluperfect. Pluperfect passive. How do we do pluperfect passive with a subjunctive? Not third, but fourth principal part with esset. So, what's the fourth principal part? No? KP is the third. What's the fourth? Coptus. Now, these enemies are plurals. We have to do copti, and then, thank you, Thea, assent. And then you have the indicative part of your sentence right there. Right? Same phrase, two different versions.
I should probably do it once.
Probably. What about femina lacrimante? When the woman was crying, how can we write that? What do we start with? Cum. The woman is now the subject of our phrase because subjunctive verbs have subjects. Femina, nomacron. And then how do we say was crying? What tense is that? Imperfect, and it is a first conjugation. So how do we form imperfect subjunctive? Second principal part, infinitive with an ending. This is a nice first conjugation verb. So how can we recreate it as an imperfect subjunctive? Excellent. And then the rest of the sentence flows out in an indicative way. Have I just blown your mind? In a good way, I guess. Well, I mean, not that badly. All right, so what I'd like for you to start doing in your groups now is to take the Latin ablative absolute phrase from the beginning of these sentences, from 44D, and I would like for you to rewrite them as cum clauses with subjunctive verbs. Start it now. Whatever you don't finish in class becomes your homework. Okay? So you're going to do this process with those phrases. Bonum fortunam.